Speaker of Parliament Professor Michael Quaye is cautioning the Ghana Police Service against invading the homes of members of Parliament as part of the investigations. He is urging them to respect privileges of MPs and approach his office anytime they want to interrogate for the necessary clearance. It follows attempts by the police on Tuesday to arrest Sesunafu South MP Collins Dada from his home over a violent incident which occurred during the limited registration exercise. The Speaker says though MPs are not above the law, a decision by police to invade the residence of the legislator without recourse to him should not happen.
What essentially asked for is not to be taken by surprise or not to be treated in a manner that will not be consistent with the dignity that an honorable member of parliament should be attended to. And that is the essence of our parliamentary privilege, and for what matter, our query in such circumstances, which of course we know have arisen from time to time. And our stance will continue to be the same with regard to emphasizing our privilege, which is universal and attendant to the work given to Parliament. We want to put on record that in future the leadership of the House, the Speaker of the House, should be informed of all such needs so that it can be done with the appropriate decency. In fact, there have been occasions during my tenure that I've actually invited the police to my conference room, and even on some occasions in my presence and the presence of leadership, asked the security agencies to ask whatever they wanted to ask, so that we will not be seen to be shielding any wrongdoing and at the same time keeping true the honor that should be given to the institution. And we want to reiterate that when any invitation is required, we would like it to be routed properly, and the appropriate honorable member will attend to the appropriate invitation at the highest quarters, preferably the Commissioner of Police CID in charge of investigation, because monkeys are playing sizes.
The Speaker also mentioned that in this specific incident, officials from Parliament would have to accompany Collins Dada to the police headquarters to meet the police CID boss.
In this particular instance, I have directed, and I will call the Commissioner of Police CID the moment I leave this hall, that the moment this House rises, the relevant officials will accompany the relevant honorable member to the office of the COP CID, now called Director CID. That's not what we knew when we were practicing law. And then have whatever conversation is necessary in accordance with the parameters of the law.
Now joining us on phone is ACP David Eklu, who's the Director General of Public Affairs at the Ghana Police Service. Thank you very much for your time, ACP Eklu. Now, have you been able to now have access to the MP?
Yes, he reported to the police headquarters at the CID headquarters this afternoon, and he has just left the CID headquarters a couple of minutes back. His statement has been taken, and he has been granted recognizance bail.
All right, now what exactly is the issue for which reason he has been required to appear at the police CID?
There was a complaint lodged against him at Kenyasi that he led some men to assault one Kenneth Donko at Kenyasi on the 23rd of September. And the information we had was that he is in Accra. So an invitation was extended to him to come and give his side of the story, which he has just done.
You care to share with us what he's had to say?
Oh no, I don't have details of what he said, but he has given us a statement, and he has been given a self-recognizance bail.
Is he required to return to the police anytime soon?
Yeah, he was told that anytime the police needed him, he would be called.
Are there any restrictions on him?
No.
All right. Now, one of the issue that has come up really has to do with the need for the police to seek permission from the speaker before going ahead to do that. Essentially, the speaker saying that you failed in this case.
What I would say is that I have just monitored the concerns by the Speaker of Parliament on the approach of the police towards this issue. The police administration has taken note of it, and we look at it. But one of the issues that we need to get clarity on is, one, if a sitting member of Parliament is alleged to be involved in a crime or there's a complaint against him, and the person is in his house, can the police go and invite him? The second one that I know of is that if the person is on his way to Parliament, that is where he cannot be intercepted or arrested. So there's a need for us to look at this issue carefully and have clarity on it, because we need them as citizens of this country to assist us in investigation. But we have taken note of what the Speaker has said, and I'm glad that he said he was going to call the Inspector General of Police or for us to look at that aspect of it. But the point is that any person in this country who is alleged to have committed an offense can be invited by the police or arrested. But where the person is in a certain position, there are procedures that should be followed. But we need to revisit that procedure again and get clarity on it, because the person was called on phone to come. Do we have to take permission before we call a speaker, a member of Parliament on phone? I think these issues, when they come to the Inspector General of Police, we have to sit down and look at it and seek clarity, because I realize there are tensions in it, and the feedback we are getting is that we need to look at it carefully so that we can have clarity. Our officers on the ground will have clarity on the way they should approach this issue.
Now, beyond sitting down to have a conversation with the Speaker, the IGP having a conversation with the Speaker, would you want to probably take it to court and get clarity on what exactly the law says about this?
I think we don't have to put this issue to court. I think that we should develop some working arrangement between us and members of Parliament so that we can all get that guidance. It is very important, especially for our officers on the ground. So let us begin by having that conversation and look at it and see how it works.
All right, thank you very much, ACP David Eklu. He's the Director General of Public Affairs at the Ghana Police Service. And we're staying with Parliament, where a 7-member committee has been set up to implement recommendations of a committee that investigated a shooting incident which left 4 people dead at Fuase in the Ashanti region. Police reportedly fired through a crowd of protesting residents over the relocation of the Achuma-Kwawoma district capital from Fuase to nearby Twede earlier in February. Government responded by setting up a committee to investigate the shootings after residents accused police of targeting them. Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei Mensah, who inaugurated the committee, chaired by Deputy Minister of Local Government Kwesi Boateng Eje. Ohim Interior has more.
Police reportedly shot through a crowd of protesting residents over the relocation of the Achuma-Kwawoma district capital from Fuase to nearby Twede. Government set up a committee to investigate the tragedy as residents accuse police of targeting them. Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei Mensah inaugurated the implementation committee chaired by Deputy Minister of Local Government Kwesi Boateng Eje. He outlines 6 reference points for members.
Now, with the terms of reference, we have the first one. Consult with the Office of the Attorney General to determine the appropriate amount to be paid as compensation in respect of the dead and injured persons. Confirm and forward to the Ministry of National Security for reimbursement the sum of 100,858 Ghana cedis being the cost of medical bills of the victims. 2. Ensure the relocation of the district capital to Twede. Adequate security arrangements should be made. 3. The health, education, and agriculture departments are to be maintained at Fuase. 4. The new assembly building for Achuma-Kwawoma Assembly is to be sited between Twede and Fuase. 5. identify and recommend a compensatory project to be implemented by government at Fuansi. 6. Follow up on the work of the technical team that has been constituted by the Ministry of National Security to deal with outstanding issues relating to the shooting incident.
Mr. Osei-Mensah is, however, unclear when the implementation committee will finish its work, but is optimistic they will help to bring lasting peace to the area.
It's not specifically indicated in the communication that came to me, but they have a very short period to deliver the distance. Some of the issues are said that you cannot strictly put timeline on it when it comes to implementation of the project for the people of Fuansi. For us, the details of the report is I cannot tell you now, but what I can say is that it's the recommendations that are very essential. It's the recommendations of as to what to do to bring lasting solution to the place, which is very essential. And those form the terms of reference.
Meanwhile, the National Peace Council is asking residents in the two communities to be patient as the committee begin its work. Reverend Emmanuel Bedu Amwa is the Regional Executive Secretary of the Peace Council.
Normally when conflict elapses, it's like a cycle. You go, the implementations level, when it's not done again, then it's go back to square one. But with this nature of conflict, I'm so happy with where it has come to. And I will urge the communities to be patient, because as they've been patient up to today, the implementation, with everything in the implementation, because that was what, with our own conflict analysis that we did on the ground, we find out that that should be the way forward for the community too. But we will also not end here. You tell every stakeholder also to be part of the process of the implementation.
From Kumasi, for Joy News, I'm Interia reports.
And you're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break. Before we do that, though, we have this release coming from the Ghana Police Service having to do with changes in command positions. And it indicates that the following changes in command positions of the Police Management Board at the police headquarters take effect as follows. COP James Opong Buanu, Director General Administration, is appointed Deputy Inspector General of Police. COP Prosper K. Aglo, Director General Welfare, is to go to the director, is now appointed the Director General Legal and Prosecutions. COP George Ekufu-Dampare, Dr. DG Research and Planning, is now to take charge of Director General Welfare. And COP Christian Tete Yohonu, Director General Police Intelligence, is now being moved to the Director General Motor Traffic and Transport Department. Also, COP Nathan Kofi Boache, the Director General Professional Standards Bureau, PPSB, has been moved to Director General Research and Planning. COP Beatrice Zakpa Vib Zanziri, Mrs., Director General Human Resource Department, has now been moved to the Director General Police Professional Standards Bureau, PPSB. Now, COP Maxwell Saka Pasco Atingane, Director General Motor Traffic and Transport Department, is now the Commandant of the Ghana Police Command and Staff College at Winneba. COP Isaac Kenyebwa, Director General Technical, is now Director General in charge of administration. DCOP George Tufo, Regional Commander of Volta Region, is now the Director General of Finance. DCOP George Alex Spencer, Regional Commander Accra, is now the Director General of Operations. DCOP Nana Asoma Hine, Regional Commander Tema, has now been moved to Director General Human Resource Department. DCOP Patrick Atampugre Akologo, Director General, has now been moved to Director General National Protection Directorate. DCOP Samuel Monet, Director General National Protection Directorate, is now the Director General Technical. And DCOP Fred Edu Enim, the Deputy Ashanti Regional Commander, is now the Director General Police Intelligence, and it's signed by David Eklu, Assistant Commissioner of Police, and he is the Director General of Public Affairs. So we're taking a break. Communications Minister Slawusu Ekofo has defended government's relationship with Chinese firm StarTimes, insisting it will help create jobs for Ghanaians. Her comments come as Parliament's Communications Committee resolves to officially summon her for interrogation over issues involving StarTimes and Kelny GVG. Also, to tell Joy News, the deal with StarTimes will not negatively impact the operations of local broadcasters.
6,000 households across the country would have the decoders, which they can watch for 6 months for free. 2 members of each of these communities would also be trained in the operations and maintenance and setup of this system, creating jobs for them in the process, over 1,000 jobs. I am excited about that because it is giving these 2 selected individuals in each of these communities an opportunity to also acquire the skills to set up and provide after-sales service, maintenance, simple repairs to these decoders and TV sets in the remotest communities in this country. We have an agenda for jobs. This project will provide our young people with skills which will enable them to work not just on the StarTimes project, but to install and service any decoder that any of these companies that are currently in this country can provide for their subscribers. You know, so I don't see where the opposition to all this is coming from.
I think this would distort the market.
How?
Create a situation where the Chinese firm would have the chance to dominate the markets more than the local firm.
How many communities are there in this country? Over 10,000 communities are in this country. DSTV has offered free decoders. Kwese TV has offered free decoders. Multi TV, when they started, offered free decoders. Those did not distort the market. And yet StarTimes, when it offers free decoders, will distort the market. Where is the logic in that? I fail to see it. So now it is not a question of handing over the management of the platform to a Chinese company. It is a question of market distortions. All those screaming about market distortions are players in the field who have also offered these same incentives to subscribers to entice them onto their network. So if someone else is doing the same thing, why should they scream? Now, if it is about foreign content, what is the percentage of local content that they are currently showing on their existing platforms? I have an issue with that.
The minister says members of the Communications Committee have adequate information on the deal, dismissing concerns from the minority. The House has been left in the dark.
A whole presentation on this has been done to them during the process for approval of the tax waivers. They are aware. Now, if for some reason some member was not present during the presentation, that cannot be the fault of the ministry. The opportunity was provided for them to be brought up to speed and briefed on what was going on. Those who were there were briefed. Those who were not cannot fault.
Well, CEO of Airtel Tigo, Mitwa Ngambi, has been allaying fears of customers who, since the early hours of Monday, have been facing network challenges. The situation, according to her, is largely caused by what she describes as technical problems arising from a system upgrade. Scores of persons gathered at the office of Airtel Tigo branches in Accra to register their frustrations with the network, as most of them say the situation has left them stranded. Nancy Emefachiradozi has more in this report.
The office of Airtel Tigo was crowded with persons who obviously looked frustrated. The customers say they have been facing network challenges since Monday. They are unable to place or receive calls, send messages, or even use the internet. They were disappointed the network provider had failed to communicate to them.
I met a serious queue all of them seem to have the same issue. So we came just to seek information from the manager or the PRO. Nobody was coming out to talk to us. Nobody was saying anything at all.
You see, it breaks the chain, which is, I don't think what they are doing, or at least they should even send us a message, prior notice, that this is what we are about to do. So this is what you should do. But there was nothing like that.
There were those who said the interruptions have affected their work, hence prepared to take legal actions against Airtel Tigo.
And I just came, I thought maybe I could have a chance to, but look at the number of people here. It's so bad. We should take them to court, definitely. You can't do this in any civilized country. You can never. Without any information, without any notice, you just push people offline. Oh no, this is so bad.
Maybe I cannot wait. The only thing is I go inside or manager don't farm says 2 days is 100 Ghana fala in the assembled one and I say o court simple.
But the situation was a little under control at the head office. The chief executive officer of Airtel Tigo, Mitwa Ngabi, explained the situation was caused by a technical problem arising from their systems upgrade.
Now, these two companies separately had existing network assets. Since then, we have been hard at work integrating these two network assets to provide a much wider coverage, higher capacity across all our entire regions. Now, during this process, we don't expect any disturbance to be experienced by consumers. However, we are dealing with machines, we are dealing with technology, and this is where we're saying if there's any glitch in a consumer's experience, we're happy to invite them into the stores so that we can deal with them firsthand.
Director in charge of market growth, Pius Tofor, also assured affected customers will be compensated.
The customers should have a SIM upgrade. But in the SIM upgrade process, a customer will not lose the number, will not lose the airtime, will not lose any Airtel Tigo money. On top of that, actually, we give customers 20 Ghana cedis and 1 GB to actually try the network. Because we've already promised the customers that we are giving them superior voice quality, fast internet and wider coverage.
The system upgrade, according to management, is expected to end in October. Nancy Emefa Dredose, Joy News.
We're taking a break to bring you business news, and coming up in business, Finance Minister to outline government's plans to issue $50 billion century bond to finance critical infrastructure projects in November, in 2019 budget in November. And then we would also be speaking with the Securities and Exchange Commission on the very latest with the Men's Gold saga. Do stay tuned. And now on to one of our major stories for this evening. The Securities and Exchange Commission says it is yet to be supplied with information it requested of gold dealership firm Men's Gold. The SEC earlier this month ordered the company to suspend trading for operating without a license and scheduled a meeting at which the company was to supply some information to the regulator. Clients of gold dealership firm Men's Gold have in the meantime been unable to access their monies they deposited with the company, for which they were to be paid returns. Joining us via Skype now is Deputy Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Paul Abebio. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Abebio. Now, what was the outcome of your meeting with Men's Gold?
Not clear yet. We asked for some basic information before. They haven't supplied that information yet.
Now, as you await the supply of, or before then, what exactly is this information that you're asking them to supply you?
I cannot disclose this. Unfortunately, the communication between Men's Gold, which was directed for their attention, some got into the public domain. But just the organization to be able to readily provide. It's information that we expect any company to have and to be able to supply when requested.
When are you scheduled to again meet the company over this?
Well, we are in touch with their lawyers. That we can. I think there's a point that we need to clarify in that was to halt issuing other businesses. The business that seems to border on capital markets is the issue of this. We instructed them to halt issuance, absolve them from the existing obligations they have. So if they need payments to their lenders, to their banks, they still have to honor those obligations.
Now, we didn't quite get you on that. Are you saying that Men's Gold is still, you haven't stopped Men's Gold from paying its depositors?
No, that's not the intent of our action. For them to doing new business. And I think from the way the law operates, if you have obligations and you're instructed not to do new business, it doesn't absolve you from paying existing debts. That's what incurred defense.
So depositors, as it is, should be able to get their monies from the company?
That's our understanding, yes. That was the communication we've given to them.
Now, what's the challenge in getting them to regularize their operations so you could regulate them? All right, I'd like to repeat this question, Mr. Abebio. What's the challenge, or why is SEC unable to allow them to regularize the operations so that you could regulate them?
Well, I wouldn't say we are unable to get them to regularize their operations. I think we initiated conversation, but the operations as it is structured straddles a range of regulated activities. And they do have certain operations that wouldn't necessarily fall in the financial services sector. For instance, the gold smelting business doesn't necessarily come under financial services. So the first point is that certain activities lie between Bank of Ghana and ourselves. We need to clarify how they want to operate going forward, because in a sense, over the years, they've actually modified their operations. And so part of that is to understand what they are offering now and what kind of trading they are doing to make a determination. Because if they are actually holding gold bullion, for instance, that may be classified as a certain kind of, should we say, warehousing service. If they themselves, I guess the question becomes, what exchange are they trading the gold on? And that's valid, because if you're trading an instrument, normally trading involves a market, and you have a buyer and a seller. So who are the buyers, who are the sellers? And if those margins are being realized, then the question becomes, is there information parity? Because part of our role is to ensure that markets operate efficiently and fairly, and that investors have the right amount of information. Another question becomes, what are the risks that are entailed in the operation? And are those risks properly understood by all the stakeholders? So when we have that information, I think we will also have to engage relevant stakeholders, and then we will look at how we advise them on, one, how to structure the operations, and as applicable, we'll give further instructions to them going forward.
All right, now that we have you clearly, the internet is working a lot better now. I'd like for you to clarify the issue you were raising earlier, that you have not, SEC has not stopped Men's Gold from going ahead to pay its depositors.
Yes. Our instruction to them was to halt doing new business. Because again, if you think of a trading platform that is in operation, and you are told to stop operation because your activity is illegal, if you have certain contractual obligations to your lenders, we expect that you would settle those obligations as and when they fall due. So from that perspective, and I think our letter specifically said that they should stop issuing new contracts. But paying out existing contracts, that doesn't stop you from doing that. So I think that's a point that has to be clarified.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Paul Abebio. Paul Abebio is the Deputy Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break. Officials of the Gassat Municipal Hospital in the Greater Accra region are appealing to the public to donate logistics they need for the entire facility to operate. The hospital, which began work Monday, is currently operating for 7 hours in a day and cannot admit patients. The hospital was built in 2016 but had remained unopened for almost 2 years until media advocacy forced health officials to make the facility operational. Authorities of the hospital, however, say although they are keen to save lives, they are constrained by the absence of critical equipment. Daniel Dante has more.
28-year-old Hannah has been sick for 5 days. The mother of 4, living in Amaria, a community in the Ganorth municipality of the Greater Accra region, says she has been battling her illness at home because the closest hospital was too far away.
The distance I had to travel to get to the nearest hospital discouraged me from leaving home.
She, however, got some good news this morning.
We had heard of this hospital, but we thought it was still closed. My cousin, however, called to tell me it was opened.
Hannah is one of the first 10 patients to visit the Ganorth Municipal Hospital, which has been open for less than a week. The Ganorth Municipal Hospital, as it's now called, will eventually go a long way to serve the 220,000 people who live within the municipality. However, because the hospital does not have the full complement of equipment and logistics it needs to run, these persons cannot fully depend on these services. Dr. Victor Caesar, the medical superintendent for the hospital, tells us what exactly they need before they say they can run as their complete capacity.
And these are just basic things that we have started with. And for now, there are lots more things we need to do. Furnitures, yes, let me see. The furnitures here were provided by Ghana West Municipal Assembly. They provided all the furnitures we are currently, but it's not enough. We need furnitures for the other department. We need furnitures for the administration.
Health authorities say the hospital will be factored into the Ministry of Health budget for 2019. This means it is possible Dr. Caesar's request will not be met for months. But for Anna, it's good enough to see her back on her feet. Daniel Daze, Joy News, Ofanko.
Government is yet to formulate policy on areas that cannot be connected to the national grid across the country. This is according to the Executive Director of the Institute of Technology, Energy and Environment, Ishmael Ajikumhene. He was speaking at a seminar organized by Imani Ghana on energy strategies in Africa. Kingsley Otu has more.
Ghana faces a daunting task of meeting its energy needs. Experts say it will cost the nation about $5 billion to meet the country's total power distribution, making it difficult to achieve the universal access to electricity. Currently, 35% of the rural communities in the country are without electricity. Executive Director of the Kumasi Institute of Technology, Energy and Environment, Ishmael Ajikumhene, says some island communities may never get connected to the national grid for lack of reach, as government is also yet to formulate a coherent policy.
Some are likely going to get grid connected, but some, like the island communities, are never going to get electricity the grid, because otherwise you need to use submarine cables. At the moment, we haven't developed the off-grid policy yet. What we know, what is clear is that on the island communities, government says they're going to do mini grids which are on those islands and what they call the lakeside communities. But for the other areas that are on land and don't fall within the grid area, there's no clear-cut policy on that.
Vice President of Imani Ghana, Kofi Benzel, says 40% of Ghana's energy challenges can be met through the use of renewable energy sources, which experts say is woefully underutilized in the country. He adds, contrary to the notion that renewable energy is expensive, it is far cheaper than the traditional sources of energy, and urged government to make a conscious effort to invest in the sector.
The point we are trying to make here is that it is time for us to seriously consider, okay, the use of renewable energy systems in this country, because we need to. Okay, it has its own advantages, and clearly we are not doing as much as we can in terms of that aspect. We've been looking at other things, oil, hydro, thermal, all those other places, and a lot has been said about solar energy, wind energy, but we've not seen much action in terms of that area, and we think that there must be more, done in that regard. I am aware that government has indeed enough policies. I think there must be more concerted action, okay, to create a real market and to create the incentive for the private sector to go more into that area. Like somebody said, it's not that renewable energy is expensive. It's just that you have to pay for it upfront. And the real problem is project management and financing. We are prepared to use billions of dollars to develop oil resources. We are prepared to use billions of dollars to develop hydro resources, but we don't seem to be prepared to use, the same amount of money or even a fraction thereof, to develop renewable, resources.
Kingsley Otu's report for Joy News.
Tears Flow Tuesday had the Nkawie Court, Circuit Court in Ashanti region after a judge handed a 48-year-old scrap dealer a 24-month jail term for stealing a litter bin. Father of four, Mohammed Rufai, was arrested at the Kumasi town of Ashanti New Town, where he committed the offense. It comes on the back of reports by city authorities 10 of 500 waste bins placed at vantage points in the metropolis have been stolen. Law firms Erastus Asaridonko witnessed proceedings in court and filed this report.
Fidelity Bank donated hundreds of bins recently to support the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly's Clean and Green project to keep Kumasi clean. In some areas, however, the bins have suddenly disappeared. Amidst public complaints, there are not enough waste collection containers in the city. Mohammed Rufai was caught after he removed one at Ashtown, KO. He went on his knees in tears to beg the Nkawie Circuit Court for forgiveness, having pleaded guilty with explanation for the charge of stealing.
I took it from a refuse dump at the racecourse market. I thought they had disposed it off. That's why I took it. I am not a thief. I have never stolen anything in my life. I am sorry.
The judge, His Honor Michael Johnson Abbey, rejected his explanation and sentenced him to 24 months in jail. James Nana Prempe, convener for Environmental and Sanitation Committee of the KMA, tells Love News the judgment will halt or at least minimize theft of the bins.
Yeah, it's on a rampant level because since we installed this litter bins, we have been experiencing it. You go and you won't find it at where you install it. So it's something that is disturbing the assembly.
What happened?
Yeah, you see, it's the citizen. Because as we have witnessed this today, you go and he coming from nowhere, then you just pick it, even knowing what he's going to use it for. So they are just disturbing the project that the assembly is embarking on.
Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaridonko, Kumasi.
Residents of Sogahofa say the Lower Volta Bridge has become a death trap as a defective spot and dysfunctional street lights are causing fatal accidents. Although some minor works were done after Joy News earlier report this year, residents say it is not enough as 2 more people have died on the stretch with others injured in less than a year. Maxwell Agbagba has more.
It's so hard to feed myself now. Sometimes I feel like committing suicide.
Voice of mother of 30-year-old Ebenezer Tonyeva narrating to me how she lost her son. When we spoke to her in March this year, she said the bridge was poorly lit and had an uneven surface around the expansion joints. 2 months after Ebenezer's mother made a passionate appeal for the bridge to be fixed, another man, 20-year-old Bestway Kwabla Clinton, died at the same spot. Here, family members dropped wreaths on his coffin as they bade him farewell.
He is my only son. I sent him on an errand for the family, and he left on a motorbike. We were in the house when people came to inform us that he was involved in an accident at the same defective spot where others have been injured in the past. He suffered head injuries and died some hours later. Although we did not know God's plan, I was hopeful He would take care of me when I become old and weak. He was not sick. It is a painful experience.
It is 6:30 p.m. and it is already pitch dark on the Soga-Kope Bridge. Well, many months after we reported the death of a motor rider on this stretch because of poor lighting and uneven surface of this stretch, it looks like the managers of this bridge have not done anything to save the situation. Months after our reports, another person died on this stretch because he was trying to maneuver his way around the uneven stretch here on this road. Surprisingly, there's a notice here informing drivers of poor road surface and telling them to slow down. I have met a former South Tongue Assembly member, Maxwell Lukuto. Together with other residents, they have been pushing for the dysfunctional street lights to be replaced and the uneven surface worked on.
It's causing a lot of death and accidents and maiming a lot of people on this very bridge. I've said time with that number that this is a national monument and should be kept as such. It's appalling the way we see national assets deteriorate without people having concern and love to make sure that what they are paid for they do. I believe that we have a highway and road or bridge maintenance unit that is responsible for fixing these things. But time without number, we realize that these things don't come to fruition. Another headache of mine now is the street lights we find on the bridge. We can count about 4 or more deaths and several people hospitalized because of this expansion joint deterioration.
Another road user has been explaining why they try to dodge the uneven surface around the expansion joints of the bridge.
What actually happens is that anytime we are riding, no rider or no cyclist will want to ride through this, I call it a gully, because if I ride through, my tire could get problems and, you know, I wouldn't have money to repair my tires as often as possible. So we usually try to maneuver, to dodge it. But one thing we do unconsciously is that when we try to dodge, we don't actually take time to look whether there's an oncoming vehicle or there's one coming from behind. So we just do it involuntarily, and as a result, some 4 guys have lost their lives here, and some people have sustained injuries such that, this thing here needs to be worked on.
Well, let's now hear from the South Tongue District Chief Executive Emmanuel Agama, who says major works on the bridge will start in October. On the dysfunctional street lights, he says some unscrupulous people continue to steal them.
We've tried severally to contact Highways Authority those days to do something about the bridge. After persistent visits to their offices, we were told the defects on the bridge not something that can be done within a day. There are other parts of the bridge that have the joints have defects in the joints, and therefore have to be awarded to a contractor, take the whole project so that the bridge could be rehabilitated. But for the interim, the District Assembly some funds and gave to the engineer, the Southeast Sector engineer of Ghana Highways Authority, to try and mitigate the situation. And they came and did some work on that portion of the bridge. And also there were some signages that they put up at the two ends of the bridge, warning the motorists to be wary of a defect on the bridge, that they should be cautious. And as of now, what we've been told is that bidding has been done, and we are waiting for the right bidder, fully by October, November. That's what I've been told, that the work on the bridge will start.
Well, what about the street lights also on the stretch? I mean, the entire 650-meter bridge is always dark, like very, very dark. And some people are saying that has also aggravated the situation because the place is not well lit.
Yes, about the street lights on the bridge. Before I came into office, the District Assembly put in some resources and fixed lights on the bridge, about worth of 30,000 Ghana cedis was spent on the bridge. After some time, the lights were removed, the cables stolen by thieves. And as of now, going back to put such a huge amount on the same bridge will bear a toll on our funds. So we are appealing to Ghana Highways Authority to assist us put lights on the bridge.
The Food and Drugs Authority, FDA, is warning owners of pharmacies who fail to comply with the best practices of packaging, storage and transportation of medicines to back up or face sanctions. The Chamber of Petroleum Ghana had raised issues with the absence of FDA surveillance teams in some pharmacies in the country to inspect medicines upon receipt. CEO of the Chamber, Anthony Ameka, expressed worry the situation can affect the potency of medicines.
The market surveillance is very, very important. As I indicated, assume a car categories from here to Tamale, and that car is not air-conditioned car. Look at the heat in that container, and the distance, and the weather. And there's nobody out there who will even be inspecting the product before it is put on the shelves. So we all need to help FDA one way or the other.
The FDA, however, says having surveillance teams everywhere is not feasible and has rather charged the pharmacy owners to do due diligence.
For instance, you are selling something like tetanus injection. It should be refrigerated. You know, like it should be. Nobody should tell you that if you transport it without it being refrigerated, you are going to compromise it. You should know it. And as a professional, you should do it. I wouldn't say it's 100% compliance because FDA, we have something we do that we call post-market surveillance activities. What we do is that we can decide that we are going to some shops or maybe, let's say, clinics or hospitals to pick samples of medicines there and test them. Sometimes when we pick some of these electronics, we realize that they've been compromised. You have registered your product here. When you are moving from here to Kumasi, FDA staff should be there checking you. We cannot do that. So the ways that we check is the way we check. By doing post-market and doing trainings, conscientizing them. They didn't understand that this is the way you are supposed to keep the product.
Well, so the government of Ghana has reached some agreement with the United States government over the deportation of some Ghanaians who were illegally resident in the U.S. And so the Ghana's ambassador to the United States has reached the diplomatic understanding with the authorities to deport some 7,000 Ghanaians from the country. Dr. Bafo Ejewia said there is no longer any dispute with the nationality of the affected persons, which had been a bone of contention earlier. He said American immigration officers have every documentation and information that allows the person to be brought into the country, so they do not need confirmation from the Ghana embassy. And here's a quote from him: "All that we were talking about was for a certain fairness to be applied, and the embassy not necessarily pressured to agree to see some people deported. This is where we had a difference of opinion with the U.S. authorities," he said. He was speaking to journalists on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, and he added that it is not a matter of agreeing to deport people without their endorsements, but we have had enough discussion for a certain sanity to prevail. So you can read some more on that story on myjoyonline.com. Now, broken promises, that's the reality residents of Mangotireke in the Gotemesjofe district of the Volta region are having to live with. The residents are compelled to continue drinking from dirty sources of water after DC for the area, Dixon Joppa, failed to live up to his promise to get them a borehole in May this year. Now let's listen to him when my colleague Giftiando Apia spoke to him.
Our budget, we captured those facilities, borehole, that we can spread to the villages around. We did that and we catered for them. They were anxious for a borehole, and we lined up boreholes to be delivered to the various villages. I think in this first quarter, that was our plan. We will quickly have a meeting with the dam owner and see what arrangement we can do so that they can have the little water that they can use now, whilst we improvise them.
What I'm just wondering is how the district assembly, which is not so far away from the town, is able to have proper water and have a water closet and use treated water to flush the toilet. But then the people they're not far away, and they're the people that you're supposed to be serving anyway.
Yeah,
they don't have.
That's what I'm explaining to you, that the construction of the district assembly is by a contractor, and the water project is from Petue. Do you understand? They have done their job and gone, but the assembly now will take care of the villages as and when we get funds, either.
Well, as he indicated, the borehole is yet to be constructed, and calls to the DC remain unanswered, leaving residents no choice but to depend on the dirty water. The residents are obviously not happy.
We drink and bathe with it. It is dirty, but our only option. The borehole doesn't flow. Sometimes we filter this water for use. When I see the DCE, I will tell him to come and use this water. If it's not good for him, then he should drill another borehole for us.
Now, as part of a Join You Save Water project, we're asking you where you live and what is the water situation there. Tell us about it on our social media pages or send an email to joinnewsroom@myjoyonline.com. And that'll be all.